If a strong scent has ever given you a headache, that's the simplest clue that fragrance isn't just a smell. It's something you breathe in, put directly on your skin, and often it sits there for hours. It's weird. We'll question our food, our water, even our cookware, but perfume or fragrance somehow gets a free pass. It feels harmless. In fact, a human study found that women who experienced miscarriages had higher levels of specific chemical markers linked to everyday fragrance exposure. And that pattern got stronger at higher levels. I'm Dr. Yvonne Burkart, a toxicologist with a PhD studying detoxification at the molecular level and decades of experience studying how everyday chemicals affect our health. In this video, we'll talk about what the science actually says about fragrance, and I'll walk you through a 2-week detox that you can start today. If fragrance was really harmless, why would some people get headaches just by walking past a candle aisle? We treat scent like a vibe, but it acts more like a chemical exposure. So what's actually happening in the body? Maybe you've thought of your self-care routine as harmless. You might light a candle, spritz your favorite perfume or body spray, and just settle in. But those comforting rituals might be doing more than setting a good mood. Most people assume fragrance just sits on the skin or fades into the air. But the chemical compounds in perfumes and sprays don't just stay on the surface. They enter through two major routes, your skin and your lungs. And once inside, they don't just vanish. Some are lipophilic, meaning they bind to fat and linger in the body. Others enter your bloodstream and circulate and trigger biological effects before being metabolized. You're not just smelling your signature scent, you're absorbing it. So where's the proof? I mean, I get it. We all want proof. We all want to see the receipts, not just vibes or speculation. We want to see actual data. And it's easy to think, oh, well, it's just a little bit of perfume and dismiss it. But this study challenged that mindset. A human case control study looked at 150 women with miscarriages and compared them to 150 matched controls. Researchers test urinary biomarkers tied to phthalates, the compounds that are commonly found in fragrance products. And the results were striking. Women in the miscarriage group had significantly higher levels of metabolites linked to DMP and DEHP. And just so you know, these aren't just random fringe chemicals. They show up in everyday cosmetics, lotions, and sprays. The women were matched for age, background, and general health. Fragrance exposure was the differentiator. When researchers controlled for everything else, the women with the higher rates of miscarriages still had significantly higher phthalate levels in their urine and blood, which suggests fragrance exposure may be a variable worth paying attention to. It's one thing to say a chemical shows up in your system, and it's entirely another to see higher levels of that chemical or those chemicals track with higher odds of harm. So could your daily dose be more than what you think? Maybe you're someone who wears perfume every day, uses scented lotion, and washes your clothes with fragrance detergent, and maybe even adds scent-boosting beads because it feels normal. But that routine could be adding up. This isn't a one-off signal. The study showed a dose-response pattern. The more phthalate metabolites in a woman's system, the higher the odds of miscarriage. What's more, those same women had lower levels of estradiol and progesterone, two key hormones that support early pregnancy. Even if these metabolites clear relatively quickly, daily exposure means they're constantly being refreshed in your body. The body is never getting a true break. So while your body can clear these chemicals, daily use keeps topping them up, and that constant reload may be suppressing the hormones you need for early pregnancy. Most people don't see fragrance as a chemical exposure, and it's not our fault. It's sold as a feeling, a luxury, a lifestyle. So why isn't it labeled like other ingredients that we're told to avoid? You might glance at a label and see just one word, either fragrance or parfum. That single word can mask a blend of dozens, sometimes even hundreds of different chemicals. These black box blends are legally protected as trade secrets, and that means zero transparency for us consumers. So you can't track your dose, and you can't assess your exposure. You're basically operating blindly. And when you layer products like body spray, lotion, detergent, deodorant, room scent, these unknowns multiply. Because fragrance is protected as a trade secret, you can't actually know what you're absorbing, which makes it nearly impossible to measure or manage your real exposure. You might think, well, I don't even wear perfume. But exposure isn't just about one bottle. It's about the background dose that's stacking up across your entire day. Here are 5 sources of exposure that often get overlooked. First are personal care products. Perfume, body sprays, skincare, hair products. These often contain overlapping fragrance chemicals that go directly onto your skin. Second, laundry products, detergent, fabric softener, dryer sheets, scent boosting beads. These leave scented residues on clothing that basically touch your skin all day long, and they release vapors that you're inhaling. Then we have air care items, things like room sprays, plugins, candles, wax melts. These fill your indoor spaces with fragrance that you can inhale continuously, especially in smaller or poorly ventilated areas. Next, hidden fragrance in so-called unscented products. Did you know that even products labeled as unscented can contain masking fragrance chemicals to neutralize odor, which still counts as a chemical exposure even if you can't smell it? Then we also have closed space intensifiers. So spraying in enclosed areas like cars, closets, or bathrooms can concentrate these fragrance chemicals in the air, leading to more intense short-term inhalation doses. When these sources combine, you're not just getting one dose, you're getting a layered, low-level fog that is surrounding your day. So you might be doing everything right, tracking your ovulation, eating clean, and taking the right supplements. But if you're still using perfume and scented products daily or washing your sheets in a heavily fragranced detergent, there could be a hidden variable that you have not considered. Daily fragrance exposure means daily absorption of endocrine-disrupting chemicals like phthalates. These compounds can interfere with hormone production and signaling, including hormones like estradiol, which is an estrogen, and progesterone. These are essential for early pregnancy. And like I said, even though these metabolites and these chemicals might clear quickly, you're just replacing them with new exposures, and so it's constantly adding up. And your body is staying in a low-level state of disruption. And if you're trying to conceive, your hormones are already working overtime. So that daily fragrance exposure means you're adding a disruptor right when your body can not afford one. Cutting fragrance can feel extreme, like you might have to throw everything out and start from scratch. But this reset is not about trying to be a purist. You just have to give your body a break. And here's why it matters. The study found that higher internal phthalate levels matched with higher odds of miscarriage. So reducing your daily dose is a rational, protective step, especially if you're trying to conceive or early in your pregnancy. Let's say you start with a 24-hour baseline day. Avoid added fragrance and then track how you feel. Things like headaches, nausea, energy, mood, and sleep. And then do a real scent audit. Look at perfume, hair products, body spray, deodorant, lotion, skincare, laundry detergents, candles, and plugins. Box up those products for 14 days. Maybe put them in your garage or somewhere outside of your house. Then swap in fragrance-free replacements with no fragrance or parfum on the label. If a product is scented, choose one with full disclosure and plant-derived ingredients like essential oils instead. If you still want to wear perfume, set strict boundaries. Apply outdoors. Limit to once a day. Avoid pulse points and spray on your clothes instead of your skin. And don't use it in enclosed spaces. I have to tell you, I used to spray a cloud of perfume in my bathroom and walk through it so I would have a nice, even coating all over my body. And I can't imagine what it was doing to my hormones, but I have to tell you, I was definitely having menstrual irregularities and fertility problems. So take it for what it's worth. Then at the end of those 2 weeks, check in. What symptoms changed? What felt easier? Reintroduce products only if they meet your new criteria. When you give your body 2 weeks without constant top-ups and refills on these valid exposures, you're letting your system clear out the backlog and reset to a lower baseline. So what's on the other side of the reset? When you stop guessing, what shifts in your day-to-day experience? Maybe you've noticed fewer headaches in scented spaces. Maybe your routine just feels easier. Fewer fragrance triggered headaches or nausea waves that wash over you. Calmer baseline, better sleep, less hormone related anxiety or that feeling of just being unsettled. More confidence in your routine because you ruled out one major unknown. A simple system that you can repeat during your TTC or trying to conceive journey, pregnancy, and beyond. And once you control what's touching your body, you stop wondering whether your environment is working against you. And that clarity alone changes how you move throughout your day. So let me know, have you been feeling any of the symptoms that we've just discussed? And what are you thinking about cutting out first? I read every single comment, so let me know. We just uncovered how everyday fragrance exposure could quietly disrupt your hormones, especially during critical windows like when you're trying to conceive and early pregnancy. But what about the products you're using on your baby after they arrive? Could those gentle baby wipes and shampoos be doing more harm than good? In this next video, I break down the baby products I would never use as a toxicologist and reveal safer swaps that protect your child without the overwhelm. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.